Good morning. Once again, today's Wednesday. As we approach Christmas, we should all be happy and celebrating. Welcome to Conversations with Dr. Johnson.
Thank you.
My daughter was just saying that you're taller and more handsome than me. It's out.
Apparently her eyesight is better than yours.
You know, the judgment is out there. The jury is out. And it might come back with an overwhelming victory for both of us.
I see. Okay.
Yes, with you winning and I winning.
Yes.
Because I practice win-win.
Yes, and we both get a participation trophy.
Yeah, that is very like when I arrived in America, my children went to school and everybody passes and everybody gets a trophy.
Yeah, no competition, no winners, no losers.
I was in shock because from when I was 5 years old, it was all competition. Who was number one, who was number two, and I got to be always number one. That's why I feel so really special. I'm not used to being number two, but since we started conversation, I had to submit to you.
So this conversation today is going to be about number two?
About number one.
I see. Okay.
Okay. So before we got on, we were talking about Charles Dickens and this article in Psychiatrist Today about A Tale of Two Cities.
Yes.
So why don't you educate most Americans who actually don't even know who Charles Dickens is, and secondly, never even read A Tale of Two Cities?
Well, this was written, approximately 150 years ago?
Yes.
It sounds like it was written yesterday.
Correct.
Now, I think everybody has heard the first couple of phrases that I'm going to read.
Yeah.
The entire quote may not be familiar. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness.
I thought that word should be stupidity.
It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair.
Despair, that's how I feel. So this morning as I read that, I said, wow, Charles Dickens must have lived in the America I live in right now.
He was way ahead of his time.
Yes, A Tale of Two Cities. Isn't that amazing that we have not changed? We are still the same crazy human beings. So that's why we're going to talk about immune systems and vitamins.
Yes.
Why do we love talking about immune systems?
Well, look. Humans have been on this planet for a very long time. Depending on who you talk to, it may be a couple 100,000 years.
That's if you believe in creationism or if you believe in evolution as a source of man.
Yes.
We don't want to go into that debate. We're just talking about how long man has been.
Yes. And
Homo sapiens.
And for longer than man has been around, bacteria and viruses have been in the environment.
Really? They were here before us?
Yes, indeed.
Should we then be submissive to them?
Absolutely not.
Okay, all right. So how do we survive that?
Well, we have an immune system.
Oh my God. You sure we don't need a vaccine?
We don't need a vaccine. We don't need masks. We don't need lockdowns. Now, lockdowns for our most vulnerable population, that certainly makes sense. But lock down a healthy population is not scientifically supported. Yeah,
but masks are okay if you are going into communities where there are people who are vulnerable.
Well, sure.
Because you could be spreading even though you're very healthy.
Sure.
Correct. So there are some reasons why those are necessary. Even doctors who are doing surgery or doing that, they wear masks.
Well, they don't wear masks so they can prevent viral transmission. They wear masks so they don't accidentally spit into the surgical field.
And then contaminate that.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay, this immune system, did it just come with man or was it something that evolved? What is your sense and understanding of it?
Well, to my knowledge, all animals have an immune system. If they didn't, they would die shortly after birth of some terrible infection.
Yes. Okay? Because they are coming into an environment where bacteria and viruses have always been around.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, some viruses are actually good for us. Some bacteria are actually good for us. So it's not all bad. It's a balancing act.
At least I remember some of my biology about parasitic, symbiotic, commensal, bacteria, and all those words describe that community of friends and foes in constant battle.
Yes. In Russia, they actually use helpful viruses, viruses that attack bad bacteria. They use those to help people recover from their infections, their bacterial infections.
Wonderful.
But if our immune system is functioning at 100%, then we don't really have to worry about bacterial and viral infections because our immune system will simply take care of it. And in the vast majority of cases, we'll never even know that we were exposed because we won't have any symptoms. We may have a day or two where we feel slightly off, but it's very vague and nonspecific, and we don't have any way of knowing, nor do we need to know.
All the battles that are going on. So, but vaccination in itself is really a trigger or a support to the immune system, isn't it?
Well, that is the theory. The theory is a vaccination is supposed to trigger an immune response without actually causing illnesses. And there's a lot of scientific debate as to whether some of the vaccines are actually good at doing that job.
Particular function. So now let's go, today's topic was to explore the vitamins and their actual immune system roles. And so we're going to discuss it in terms of the role. The first role here is the maintenance of structural and functional integrity of mucosal cells in the innate barriers. What is that? Lots of big language there, Doc.
Okay, so when we swallow bacteria or viruses, when we inhale bacteria or viruses,
which is in everything we do.
Sure. The first line of defense is our mucous membranes in our mouth and nose, the mucous membranes that line our gut. So it's talking about those mucous membranes being strong enough to do their job.
Which is the first line of defense.
First line of defense.
And that's what we mean by structural and functional integrity.
And for that we need vitamin A, vitamin D3, vitamin C, vitamin E, vitamin B6, B12, folic acid, iron, and zinc.
The second one is the immune cells themselves. It talks about differentiation, proliferation, functioning and movement of innate immune cells. And why are we specifically saying innate immune cells? Go ahead.
Innate simply means they are inside of us. They are a natural, normal part of us.
That we were born with it.
Yes. Most of our immune cells are produced in the thymus. Thymus is a little gland that sits behind our breastbone. Thymus is huge in a newborn. It shrinks as we get older and older, and by the time we're 70 or 80, they may not even be able to find the thymus. It's basically become microscopic. It has shrunk so much. But nevertheless, we need all these same vitamins that I just rattled off previously, in addition to copper and selenium and magnesium. We need all of these to keep those innate immune cells strong and doing their job.
So, but what tends to happen, Doc, is that in America and across the world, every child in the first 18 months is given a lot of vaccinations. So is that to build a secondary immune layer, or what is the purpose?
Well,
since we come with the thymus already with some innate immunity.
That is certainly the intention. Unfortunately, we are now giving such a huge slate of vaccinations, all in combination over a very short period of time, that there's some evidence to suggest that it is overwhelming the immune system and having an overall negative effect rather than a positive
ultimately
effect.
Yes. All right, so the next function here is antimicrobial effects. Antimicrobial effects. I know this is a lot of grammar. So talk to us. What are antimicrobial effects?
Okay, well, everybody has heard of an antibiotic. Which is a drug that will kill certain bacteria. Okay? Antimicrobial is just a more general term for something that will kill bacteria and viruses.
So are you saying that there are vitamins that would kill bacteria and viruses.
Yes, vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc, iron, copper, and selenium. Yes.
I am getting deeply educated. I thought I only needed antibiotics, but it looks like I could take supplements to downregulate that the bacteria that's growing inside of me.
If you've got a serious bacterial infection,
Yes.
And you're sick enough that you have to go to the hospital,
Yes.
At that point you need antibiotics. You
Yes.
need prescription drugs. However, having said that, if patients that are hospitalized for serious infections would be given high doses of intravenous vitamin C, those patients would get well much faster.
Okay. All right. So let's look at the next functional role. Its roles in inflammation, antioxidant effects, and effects in oxidative bursts.
Okay. So you're really wanting us to give them a deep, deep education today, aren't you?
Well, yes, because there's inflammation.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people think inflammation is a bad thing.
Well, here's the thing. Inflammation is very much a two-edged sword. If you're fighting off a significant bacterial infection, your body has to produce some degree of inflammation in order to be successful.
Yes,
in
and I
rid of
call
those
it,
bacteria.
it's like the smoke signal to tell us where the fight is, to rally the troops.
Like when they choose the Pope and the smoke signal comes out?
Yes, exactly, to say we have Habemus Papa, we welcome the new Pope.
Is that how they say it?
Yes, Habemus Papa.
Easy for you to say.
I know, I did Latin. All right.
So wait, let's talk about inflammation a little bit more. So what our body does when it's in optimum health is it turns on inflammation when we need it, and then turns it back off as soon as the inflammation has done its
and
job.
downregulates.
Yes. So as we age, we largely lose our ability to regulate inflammation properly. And so aging causes more inflammation, and unfortunately, inflammation causes more rapid aging. So it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, and that's what we call chronic inflammation.
Yes.
Where the inflammation is not downregulated.
Yes. So probably the three most important things we can do to keep inflammation under control is to avoid eating sugar, avoid eating polyunsaturated fats. In other words, most vegetable oils. We've all been brainwashed to believe those are good for us.
And they're cheap, and you get them from Costco.
Nothing could be further from the truth. Polyunsaturated fats are very, very bad for us. They're very pro-inflammatory.
Exactly.
And then the third thing is we have this very powerful supplement that you're well acquainted with, SPM Active.
SPM Active. It's a fractionated fish oil. I love saying that. And people are like, what is fractionated fish oil?
Okay, so most everybody knows that fish oil has anti-inflammatory benefits.
Yes.
However, the anti-inflammatory benefit is contained within a very tiny fraction of that fish oil.
Yes.
So SPM Active is where they have extracted and concentrated that little tiny fraction. So these SPM Active capsules are very small, and yet as small as they are, one of these has approximately the anti-inflammatory benefit of about 20 of those gigantic fish oil horse pills.
So if you don't like taking those big fish oil pills, SPM. Actually, by Dr. Johnson, it's very expensive. So is this benefit only for rich people?
Well, you get what you pay for.
Wow. So poor people can manage their inflammation then?
Well, if they manage their finances, they can, because...
Really?
Well, look...
No discount for poor people?
We've that's up to you. We have all been aware of the phenomenon in ourselves and others that what is most important to us, we will figure out a way to make it happen.
I love that. Yes,
we'll figure out
I
a
love
way.
that. An unconstrained style of living.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So let's go to the next function of the immune system, and that function is differentiation, proliferation, and the normal functioning of T cells.
Okay.
So what are T cells?
Okay, T cells are the immune cells that are named after the thymus. T is for thymus. These T cells originated in the thymus.
So are this part of the innate immune system, these T cells? We were born with them?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
So, If you are exposed to the polio virus, your T cells are going to differentiate into cells that can specifically fight polio. If you're exposed to measles, same thing will happen. If you're exposed to COVID-19, same thing will happen. They will be differentiated into cells that can recognize and fight off COVID-19.
So is that why children like me who played in the mud when we were young were so robust?
Actually, the answer is yes.
I told you guys, straight from heaven.
There is a problem in our modern society with mothers being germophobic.
Yeah, like my daughter was treated germophobically.
And they keep the child's environment so clean and disinfected all the time, and they don't let them go outside and play in the dirt
and roll in the mud.
That these kids end up with a weak immune system.
They show us pictures of those kids in Africa. Oh, poor kids. But those kids are actually building a powerful immune system.
Yes.
Isn't
That's
it?
True. Yes.
Yes. Okay,
Yes.
Let's go to the next one. Antibody production and development.
Yes, yes.
Is it anti or anti? You know, I'm a European, so I get confused with Americans.
Well, you can say it either way.
Okay.
But antibody is certainly the most common pronunciation.
Okay, antibody.
But if you say antibody, I will not correct you.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Johnson. So, antibody production and development. What are antibodies?
Okay, so antibodies are these little proteins that these T cells make to attack and kill the bacteria or the viruses.
Okay.
An antibody is specific to
that specific bacteria or virus.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's like they wear uniforms. Like my uniform is a COVID-19 uniform. So we are the only ones who line up.
So you can be
for that
identified.
Attack.
Yes.
Yes. And then some line up and they're attacking certain bacteria for mucosal bacteria,
yes,
or streptococci, or the armies are all lined up.
Yes.
So if I went into my immune system, I'll see like this march past.
Sure.
Like the Russian army.
So you've got your infantry, you've got your cavalry,
your navy,
yeah, your
Air
Marines,
Force.
You've got the guys that man the cannons.
You've got the FBI, the investigators. They're running patrols, sea, land, and wow. This is our immune system is like an army.
Yeah, you forgot the satellites.
Oh yes, watching over everything.
Yeah. Yes.
And then the drones. Now you have to improve the immune system to build drones when they're unmanned.
Well, we expect that in the fairly near future they're going to have nanobots that they can inject into
which will be like a drone.
Yeah, in your bloodstream.
Wow. Now, it will go in and target specific areas.
Is that a good idea? I have very serious doubts about that.
Well, only if you and I discover it.
I will not be volunteering to have a nanobot injection.
Yeah, I don't trust other people except you and me.
There you go.
Yeah. So the next functional area is responses to antigen.
Well, and that's really just a subset of antibody production, because the antigen is the name for the proteins that are on the surface of the bacteria and the viruses that our immune system uses to identify them and then produce the appropriate weaponry to kill them off.
Yeah. So if we want to summarize, we started with vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin E, the B complexes.
Yes.
And then folate. What is folate? I thought folate was a B vitamin.
It is. Folic acid is a B vitamin.
Okay.
And it's prevalent in greens that we eat.
Yes.
Another name for greens is foliage, and that's where the name folic acid came from foliage.
From folate.
Yes.
And then we have these minerals.
Yes.
Zinc, copper, selenium, magnesium, and all these others. So, but you know, as typical Americans, I call myself an American now.
Oh, wow.
But you're far from typical.
Exactly. Yes.
That's a compliment.
Yeah, I know. I belong to the 1 or 2% who run the shit. Right. So people get overwhelmed with all these numbers. So is it better to take a multivitamin that contains all of this, or what would be your recommendation? Because most people say, I take a multivitamin. And what would you say, Doc?
Well, I would say that most multivitamins on the market are of such poor quality and such tiny dosages
Yeah.
that they're not much good. They may be better than nothing, but only a little. Most people will want to take a very high quality multivitamin, which you're not likely to find at a health food store
Yes.
or at Costco.
Except you came to us.
Yeah, sure. We have some very good ones. So
Yes.
a good multivitamin, a good multimineral. Now,
Yes.
for people that are willing to get much more expansive about their vitamin intake, it's not a bad idea to take these individually in even higher doses.
Yes. Like the vitamin D3, which is like your go-to vitamin.
Sure. It's at the top of the list for the immune
It's your
system.
go-to vitamin for the immune system.
Sure.
They're like commandos.
Yes.
Yeah, they're the ones who lead the forces. They're like the Navy SEALs. They go and die in the attack. They're kamikazes. They die to keep you alive, right?
Yeah, sure. Whatever you say.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Johnson. So we've been looking for feedback from our audience on topics for conversation. Because Dr. Johnson always comes to me 10 minutes before our conversation and say, what are we going to be talking about today? And I look at him and I make up something. There's always something interesting to talk about. Dr. Johnson is a fascinating person to work with. So a friend of mine asked several questions, but they didn't want you to answer because they thought you would go too technical. But I said, no, he's not very technical. He's a good guy. Somebody wanted to know, simply, what is diabetes?
What is diabetes?
Yes.
Well,
I have a response, but I want to hear what you say first.
sure. The first thing you have to understand is that our pancreas produces insulin
Yeah.
to allow the sugar in our bloodstream to go into the cells where it's burned for energy.
Correct.
Okay?
That's the normal
Yeah.
process.
Insulin is the key that unlocks a door to the cell that allows the sugar to get inside the cell.
And used for energy production.
Okay. There's type 1 diabetes, which almost always starts in childhood and is believed to be an autoimmune disorder that destroys the insulin-producing cells in the pancreas.
In the islets of Langerhans.
Islets of Langerhans.
I know that. In
Yeah.
England, they call them islets.
Well, what can I say?
About England?
English, technically it's their language, but they have a lot of very bizarre pronunciations.
I know. You call them
Aluminium,
islets.
vitamins, privacy.
Exactly,
I don't
yeah.
know.
Trunk and everything
I don't
else.
know. So they're also called beta cells.
Yeah, beta cells.
Beta cells. So
That's in the pancreas.
So in
Yeah.
type 1 diabetes, the patient completely loses the ability to produce insulin. And so those are the people that have to take the insulin shots.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
And without those insulin shots, they will die quickly in a matter of days.
Yes.
Type 2 diabetes, on the other hand, is a totally different animal, and it's much more common. It has been called adult onset diabetes.
Yes.
And type 2 diabetes is very much a lifestyle disease. People eat the wrong foods, they don't get exercise, they gain weight. And what happens here is the cells of your body become resistant to the effects of insulin. The key doesn't work very efficiently in the lock anymore. And so as a result, the body says, I guess we got to make more insulin. The insulin we have is not doing its job, so we got to produce more insulin. Well, unfortunately, insulin is not just a blood sugar hormone, it's also a very powerful fat storage hormone.
Okay.
And so typically type 2 diabetics tend to gain more and more weight, and it's very much a vicious cycle.
Yes.
And in the vast majority of cases, type 2 diabetes can be reversed if people are willing to do what needs to be done.
And change their lifestyle.
Clean up their diet.
Yes. Exercise.
Exercise, lose weight.
Sleep well.
And there are certain supplements that can be very, very helpful. Yes.
So my understanding is that diabetes is actually the representation of many imbalances in the body that then show an expression in what we call diabetes.
Yes.
And we measure it with a couple of key signals, right?
Sure.
With your blood glucose
Yes.
If it is not, it's too high,
Yes.
or it's too low, it means that the insulin key is not working very well.
Well, if your blood sugar is too low, what has
Yes.
almost always happened
Yes.
is that you've eaten a lot of the wrong foods, you've eaten a lot of sugar, maybe you've had pancakes with syrup and you've washed it down with a Coca-Cola.
That sounds very American.
It does, and your blood sugar...
Isn't that what they call breakfast?
And let's hope not. And your blood sugar goes sky high, your body puts out a surge of insulin to handle that.
Yes.
And with rare exceptions, because your blood sugar was going so high so fast, your body overreacts and produces too much insulin. So a couple of hours later, your blood sugar comes crashing back down and now it's too low.
Yes.
Now, an important thing to understand about type 2 diabetes is there definitely is a genetic component.
To it.
Some people will develop type 2 diabetes much earlier in life, much more easily. Only takes a little bit of weight gain for it to happen to them.
Yeah.
Other people are genetically more resistant to that.
Yes.
It'll still happen eventually if they eat enough of the wrong stuff, are lazy enough, and gain too much weight. Having said all that, it is considered that every human on the planet is potentially pre-diabetic
By the time they die.
by the time they die, if they live long enough. Now,
Yes.
they may die much younger from a heart attack or a
Other
stroke
things.
or whatever,
Yeah.
but everybody will eventually become diabetic if they live long enough. So what is the take-home message? The take-home message is, as we age, we've got to work harder and harder and harder each year to eat healthier, to exercise more, and to keep our weight down where it belongs.
And that's why the Buddhists say the older you get, the less you should eat.
Do
the
they,
less
do,
calories.
do they say that?
Yes, they say.
Another wisdom of nugget of wisdom. Wisdom of nugget? Oh my gosh, where'd that come from?
It's all that English influence on you.
That's the problem, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
So the Buddhists would say that at 20, a man or a woman should be eating maximum 2,000 calories.
Okay.
At 40, you should have that to 1,000. At 60, you should be at 500. At 80, you should be at 250.
And that's why they wither away and a big wind just blows them away.
Finally.
That seems a little extreme, frankly.
But it
But it
captures
illustrates
what-
the principle.
Yes, exactly.
And I would add to that, I don't count calories. I don't recommend my patient count calories. If you eat healthy, limit the sugars and starches,
Yes.
and eat healthy fats rather than unhealthy fats. Healthy fats don't make us gain weight. They actually allow us to burn fat more efficiently.
Yeah.
Okay?
So they went to a second question before we take some questions.
Okay.
They asked about glaucoma. And I said glaucoma was a consequence of uncontrolled diabetes at some point.
You're talking about glaucoma of
Yes.
the eyes?
Yeah, glaucoma, yeah.
Well, you're talking about diabetic retinopathy, which is a consequence.
All right.
Okay.
So glaucoma is something different from
Yes.
the diabetic retinopathy.
Glaucoma is a condition where the pressure inside your eyeball gets too high.
Okay.
You have to have a little bit of pressure inside your eyeball, but you want just enough, not too much.
Okay.
Now, if you put too much pressure on my arm continuously, eventually my hand is going to lose
Go numb.
circulation and die and fall off.
Yes.
Okay.
And so what causes glaucoma?
Well,
Glaucoma.
there are a lot of theories to that.
Yeah.
From a holistic perspective, I don't think we have an absolute clear-cut answer.
so.
I believe heavy metal toxicity probably plays a significant role in most cases.
Okay.
Nutritional deficiencies can play a role. And there are some holistic supplements that we've had some reports of people reversing glaucoma with.
Interesting.
Okay.
So we spoke about diabetes. I wanted to look at some of the downstream complications that arise from uncontrolled diabetes.
Okay, so uncontrolled diabetes damages your blood vessels, specifically your arteries,
Yes.
okay? Why do we need to worry about arteries? Because we have arteries from head to toe.
Yes.
every cell in our body is given their blood supply from an artery.
Nutrients and everything.
Oxygen and nutrition are delivered to the tissues.
Yes.
It is estimated that the average adult has at least 100,000 miles of arteries.
Yes.
Okay? So if you're developing vascular problems due to diabetes in the brain, that can cause strokes. It can play a role, an absolute role in Alzheimer's. And in fact, some researchers are now calling Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes.
I know.
Okay.
Some of it, yes.
If the vascular problems are in the eye, it can lead to blindness. In the heart, can lead to heart attacks and heart failure.
Oh, but you did say the eyes was the diabetic retinopathy. Which would lead to blindness.
Which is a problem with the blood vessels in the retina.
To the eye, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
If that happens in your kidneys, you're going to have kidney failure and can eventually end up on dialysis. If it happens in the legs, we can get what's called neuropathy. And we can get gangrene and amputations.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So diabetes.
Yeah, diabetes is no problem itself. It's the complications that'll get us.
And I think that a lot of people who are diabetic just think, oh, if I'm on medication, I'm fine. But they don't see the long-term outcomes of really, if you don't change your lifestyle.
Yeah.
So just being on medication is not a solution.
No. Yeah, a lot of people have the attitude, well, I'm taking my medication, so I don't need to watch my diet. I don't need to exercise. I don't need to lose weight. And the reality is, absolutely, they need to do all of those things, with the goal being to reduce or hopefully eventually get off that medication.
I wanted to talk about your favorite medication.
Metformin?
Metformin!
Okay. So metformin is a prescription for diabetes. It is usually given as the first standard opening treatment, okay? And when we talked earlier about our insulin levels going too high, I said that the cells become resistant to insulin. And so we call that insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is a bad thing. The opposite of insulin resistance is insulin sensitivity, okay? Insulin sensitivity is a very good thing. Metformin restores insulin sensitivity. And in fact, there's anti-aging research going on right now that the preliminary indications are that people who take metformin, even if they don't have diabetes, will tend to live about 10 years longer than people who don't take metformin.
That's why I'm taking it.
There you go.
Every day.
Now, unfortunately, what I see with many patients is their doctors start them on a low dose of metformin. It doesn't do the job, and so instead of increasing them to a more appropriate dose, they start giving them insulin shots. Well, insulin shots for a type 2 diabetic is the kiss of death. And many of those patients will be dead within about 3 years of starting insulin shots.
Yeah, it pushes you down.
It makes the insulin resistance worse.
Yeah.
And they also will tend to say, well, the metformin isn't strong enough, so we're going to add one of these other diabetic pills to take. And most of the other diabetic pills have a huge long list of side effects that are very undesirable.
So you recommend, as you know, you take metformin and I take metformin every day.
Yes.
And so it's, and we, on top of that, we put berberine.
Yes.
I take berberine, which has almost the same kind of effects as metformin.
Yeah, berberine is an herb.
Yes.
It's incredibly bitter. It's so bitter that if you put the capsule in your mouth and hold it there, you won't like it. Because the berber just leaks out through the
So you swallow
capsule.
It quickly.
Yes.
Not with a soda, with some tea, some green tea.
There you go.
And for people who are also thinking about weight loss and things like that, the chromium supports that loss of weight too as part of that whole.
Yes.
So I take the chromium, I take the berberine, and I take the metformin.
Yes.
As standard, on top of my foundational supplement.
Yes. And on top of your exercise.
And on top of my vitamin D3.
And on top of your healthy diet.
On top of everything else.
You know, I'm going to have to shadow him for about 72 hours straight and just see what he's actually eating. Make sure he's on track.
Yeah, well, I'm doing intermittent fasting. I typically don't eat anything most times until lunchtime.
Yeah, but then what are you eating at lunch?
I eat some rice, some beans.
Some chilled overnight rice so the starch becomes resistant?
Exactly.
Okay, good.
I
Good,
listen
good,
to
good.
Dr. Johnson.
Good.
Yeah, so I'm eating resistant starch rice. Mike also has started freezing his rice.
Okay.
His family thinks he's crazy, but he says, I listen to Dr. Johnson, conversations with Dr. Johnson, and I eat meat and fish.
Organic grass-fed beef, I hope.
Yes.
Whenever possible.
With ghee
There
and
you go.
all of that. Yes, we do all the good things. And just recently, I sleep so well. I can't believe it.
Excellent.
Last night, I went to bed at 8:30.
Yeah.
And I woke up at 5.
Okay, that sounds
Lots
good.
of sleeping.
Yeah.
With just one pee break. One pee break.
I thought you were saying with one pea brain.
No, one pee break. Well, any questions for Dr. Johnson today?
Yeah, we have 2 questions.
Go ahead, Karen.
First question is, Dr. Johnson, when you speak about being diabetic, how does one in a younger age frame know that they're either pre-diabetic or heading to stage 1 of diabetes?
Okay, so if you are significantly overweight, and by significant I would say 10 or 15 pounds. Now, there are millions of Americans that are 100 pounds overweight. Most of those people are diabetic or pre-diabetic, whether they know it or not.
Correct.
And so, how do you tell? You have to visit your doctor. He has to do some testing.
So obesity is the first mark of it.
Sure, and we're seeing so many obese teenagers these days because they spend all day playing video games, eating pizza.
Yes.
That type 2 diabetes, which is considered an adult disease, or at least historically has always been considered an adult disease, we're now seeing an epidemic of type 2 diabetes in teenagers.
So,
and it's rather alarming.
So obesity is the initial marker, and you could look at BMI calculations, right? So
You can.
say like above 25, 26, or 28.
We'd certainly want you to stay below 30, but
All right.
BMI is a somewhat complicated calculation that the
Yes.
average American, you can go online and you can Google BMI calculator
And check your
and then
BMI.
you can enter your height and weight and you can calculate your BMI, but
Oh, we have some other diagnostics measurements,
Yeah.
like blood sugar,
Yes.
and
Insulin levels.
insulin levels, and HbA1c,
Yeah.
which are indicative
Yes.
of where you are with regard to that.
yeah, a blood sugar test tells you where your blood sugar is at that particular moment in time.
Yes.
Imagine you're watching a Le Mans car race.
Yes.
And there's a huge difference between a snapshot and
And
a
the whole
movie
race,
of the
yes.
race. This hemoglobin A1C blood test gives us a movie, if you will, of your blood sugar for the last 3 months. So it's considered to be the gold standard, a more
Indicator,
accurate way.
of diabetes. And what was the second question?
So just to tangent off that, so you can be slim and still be diabetic or pre-diabetic, correct?
It's possible.
Okay.
It's not common. Now, type 1 diabetics, they're almost always skinny.
Okay.
Almost always, okay? But type 2 diabetes is much more common in overweight people. We occasionally see cases where even when they lose as much weight as they need to, their diabetes is better, but it's still not gone.
And type 2 diabetes is the scary one.
No. Type 1 diabetes is the one that will kill you in a matter of days if you don't get your insulin shots. Type 2 diabetes kills you slowly
Over a long period.
through the vascular problems that can develop in the brain, the eyes, the heart, the kidneys, the legs, and so on.
Okay. And so the second question was, I posted a video of a consultation, people coming to have their consultation with you.
Yes.
So there was a question on what exactly goes down in a 30-minute consultation with you, and what should people do in order to prepare to have a consultation with you?
Okay. Well, if they watch the consultation, they should pretty well know what goes down.
Yeah.
But how do you prepare for the consultation? Get your medical history clear in your head. If you jot it down, we want to know childhood illnesses, we want to know surgeries, we want to know overnight hospitalizations, we want to know current medical diagnoses, whether it's heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, whatever. We want to know medications that you're on. We want to know medication allergies that you may have.
And sometimes some family history.
Well, sure. Family history is always useful. And if you know your blood type, that is a useful piece of information. It's not essential, but it's useful if you have it.
Okay. Any other questions?
I don't think so.
Well, Dr. Johnson, this has been fascinating. We started with A Tale of Two Cities, Charles Dickens.
And ended up with a tale of two brilliant men.
Hey.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Bye-bye.